The first thing I learned about horses was that they noticed everything you wanted to hide. The second thing I learned was that my 17-year-old son had apparently inherited the same ability. "You can go, Dad," Henry said it without looking at me. He stood beside a chestnut gelding named Murphy, one hand resting on the saddle, while a teenage girl in a red baseball cap adjusted something near the stirrup. Around them, the first morning of the summer horsemanship program was coming to life, in leather creaks, boots scraping dirt, horses blowing through their noses, and instructors calling names across the arena. I stayed exactly where I was. "I know." Henry finally looked over. "Then why are you still here?" "I'm observing." "You're hovering. There's a difference." "What is it?" I opened my mouth. Nothing useful arrived. Henry gave me the faintest smile. 6 months earlier, I would have taken that smile as proof that he was fine. 6 months earlier, I had believed a lot of things were fine. My marriage, for example. Mark and I had still paid the mortgage on time. We still knew which nights Henry needed the car. We discussed groceries, insurance, dentist appointments, and whether his winter coat would survive another season. Then, one Tuesday night, in the same tone he might have used to tell me we were low on detergent, Mark said he didn't think he wanted to be married anymore. He had been thinking about it for almost a year. I had been sitting 3 feet away from him for most of it. So yes, I had become a man who observed. Possibly hovered, definitely checked. "Mr. Maddox?" I turned. The man walking toward me had been introduced 15 minutes earlier as Travis Hale, lead riding instructor and coordinator of the youth program. At the time, I had mostly registered that he was responsible for my son not getting trampled. Now that he was coming directly toward me, I registered several additional details. He was tall enough that I had to tilt my head slightly when he stopped in front of me. His dark hair was clipped short and going silver at the temples. His face had the color people developed by spending their days outside, instead of under office lighting. His sleeves were pushed above his elbows. His forearms were tanned. I noticed this because apparently divorce had not destroyed all higher brain function. "Stephen," I said. "Stephen." He glanced past me toward Henry. "Your son is doing fine." I didn't ask. "No." One corner of his mouth moved. "You were about to." "I might have been. You've been standing at that rail for about 40 minutes. I checked my watch automatically. Travis laughed. "That was an estimate." "Oh, you checked. I'm an accountant. Does that make you professionally incapable of leaving numbers alone?" "More or less." Behind him, Henry was climbing into the saddle. My attention moved immediately. Travis shifted half a step sideways, not enough to block my view, enough that I noticed he had done it. "Murphy is 21, he said. "He's carried beginners, nervous adults, kids recovering from falls, and one county commissioner who claimed he'd been riding since childhood and mounted from the wrong side." I looked back at him. "The wrong side?" "Exactly. I don't know what that means, which is why I'm telling you that if something goes wrong, your son is surrounded by several people more qualified than you. That's comforting. It was intended to be." It didn't sound comforting. "I can try again." I waited. "That horse knows his job better than you know mine." I stared at him. Somehow worse. He grinned. It changed his whole face. That annoyed me. Or interested me. At 40, I was old enough to recognize that those two reactions sometimes shared a wall. Travis nodded toward a low building on the other side of the yard. "There's breakfast at the lodge until 9:30. Town's 15 minutes east if you want to escape completely." "I'm not trying to escape. I know." His gaze moved briefly to Henry. "That may be the problem." Before I could decide whether I disliked him, Travis walked toward the center of the arena. I watched him go, then realized Henry was watching me. He raised his eyebrows. I left the rail. 45 minutes later, I came back. I considered that personal growth. Henry did not. "You went 50 yards. I went to the lodge. I could see you through the window." "That sounds like you were watching me. I was checking whether you were still being weird." "Good news?" Undetermined. He climbed down from Murphy with more grace than I had demonstrated getting out of the rental car that morning. Lunch was with the students. Orientation came after that. Henry would stay in ranch housing during the later part of the program, but for the first couple of weeks, I had rented a small furnished place outside Laramie so I could work remotely and drive him when needed. He slung his bag over one shoulder. "I'll see you tonight." "I know." He paused. Dad. Yes? I'm okay. My immediate instinct was to ask what he meant by okay. Okay with the horse? Okay with Wyoming? Okay with the divorce? Okay with moving between two homes? Okay with Mark dating again someday? Okay with me pretending not to wonder whether silence still meant danger? I stopped. Okay, I said. Henry gave me a quick nod and followed the other students. That should have been enough. I was working on letting it be enough. You survived. Travis was a few yards away, holding a bundle of leather straps I couldn't have identified if someone offered me money. Barely. Henry did well. I felt my shoulders loosen. Travis noticed. I could tell because his expression changed slightly. He listens, he said. Doesn't panic when he gets corrected. That matters more than looking comfortable on day one. He's never ridden. I read the forms. Right. Travis shifted the straps to his other hand. Friday night, the students eat here. I waited for the update. They've got a group activity afterward. Okay, so you're free. I frowned. Are you asking about my schedule? His eyes held mine. For the first time since I had met him, he looked slightly less certain than he had standing among 1,000-pound animals. No, he said. I'm asking you to dinner. For 1 second, I genuinely thought I had misunderstood him. Maybe Wyoming used the phrase differently. Maybe dinner meant parent orientation. Maybe liability waivers were involved. Travis waited. I said brilliantly, "Me?" His eyebrows lifted. "There another Stephen Maddox standing behind you?" I looked over my shoulder anyway. He laughed. Heat moved up my neck. "I haven't been asked out in a while." "That a no?" "No." His expression changed again. Smaller this time. Satisfied. "Good. Good? I was hoping you'd say yes." That should not have landed as hard as it did. For months, people had described me in practical terms. Reliable. Reasonable. Good with money. A good father. Easy to co-parent with. Nobody had said they were hoping I would say yes to anything. "What time?" 7. "I'll need the address. I can text you. You have my number?" Emergency contact forms. That feels ethically questionable. It would be if I used that number. He pulled his phone from his pocket. "So give it to me yourself." I laughed. Then I did. That evening, Henry and I ate burgers at a place outside Laramie, where every wall seemed to contain either antlers or a photograph of someone sitting on a horse. Henry was halfway through his fries when I said, "Travis asked me to dinner Friday." He stopped chewing. "Like dinner? I assume so. You don't know?" He asked me out. "Oh." I waited. He picked up another fry. "That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Is he your type?" "I am not discussing my type with you." "That means yes." "It means, eat your fries." Henry smiled, then the smile faded. "You should go." I relaxed too quickly. He noticed. But, there it was. Okay, he's my instructor. I'm aware. And I like him. I'm glad. So if you guys go out and it gets weird. He gestured vaguely between us, then toward some imaginary point where Travis presumably existed. "I'm not going to interfere with your program." "That's not what I mean." Henry looked down at his plate, then back at me. "Go out with him. Seriously, just don't make him weird for me." I laughed once. Henry didn't. And that was when I understood that the summer I had brought him to Wyoming for was not going to belong entirely to me. Possibly none of it did. By Friday afternoon, I had managed not to attend 2 of Henry's sessions. I considered this extraordinary restraint. Henry considered it the minimum standard for functioning adulthood. "You know they post photos," he said when I picked him up after lunch. "I know. So you can see I'm alive." "I'm not checking the photos." He looked at me. I looked out the windshield. "Frequently." "How frequently?" "Define frequently." He sighed. The truth was, I had spent most of the day trying not to think about dinner and failing so efficiently that my work output had dropped by something like 30%. I changed shirts twice. I looked up the restaurant even though Travis had already sent the address. I spent 4 embarrassing minutes wondering if my shoes made me look recently divorced. I still didn't know what recently divorced looked like. Possibly a man standing in a rental bathroom, asking his reflection whether Navy was too eager. At 7, Travis was already outside the restaurant. No hat. That should not have changed anything. It did. Without the ranch behind him, he looked less like someone professionally responsible for animals and reckless teenagers, and more like a man who had asked me to dinner because he wanted to, which made breathing slightly less automatic. You came, he said. I said I would. I was giving you a chance to change your mind. Why? He opened the door. Because you spent 3 minutes entering your phone number into my phone. That proves caution. It proved you were considering escape routes. I'm an accountant. We call that risk management. He laughed. Inside, the restaurant was loud enough that conversation required intention. For the first 10 minutes, I talked about Henry. I could hear myself doing it and seemed unable to stop. I gave Travis an unnecessary account of Henry's relationship with school, food, sports, sleep, and the piano teacher he had quit at 12 because she expected daily practice. Travis listened. Then he said, Stephen, yes, I already know your son. I stopped. Right. I'm asking about you. Oh, he leaned back. What do you do when you're not monitoring teenagers? I work. That's grim. I like my job. What is it? I told him. Management accounting for an outdoor equipment distributor. Budget forecasting, cost controls, inventory, meetings in which people sometimes blame spreadsheets for decisions made entirely by humans. Travis listened closely enough that I kept going. I like problems that get clearer once you put the numbers in the right order. That sounds exactly like something you'd enjoy. We've known each other 4 days. Still sounds right. What does that mean? You like things that behave if you understand them. I looked at him. He took a drink. Was that rude? A little. Sorry. You don't look sorry. I'm working on it. Our food arrived. After a while, he asked, How long have you been divorced? There was nothing delicate in his tone. Oddly, that made answering easier. 6 months legally. Longer in practice, apparently. He waited. There wasn't a dramatic event. No affair. No disaster. Mark just got quieter and quieter about us. I thought we were tired. Sometimes that's worse. I glanced at him. Harder to know what you're supposed to be angry about, he said. That was more accurate than I wanted from a man I had known 4 days. What about you? Divorced once. 28. Married young. Stupid young. How long? 3 years. To a man? Yes. He smiled slightly. I feel like you're checking categories now. I'm not. You are. Was it bad? No. The answer surprised me. We liked each other. We also wanted completely different lives, and kept assuming effort would eventually fix that. He wanted Oregon. I wanted ranch work. We tried making each other temporary until one of us changed. Did one of you? No. So you divorced. Eventually. Still in touch? Christmas texts. Birthdays if one of us remembers. That sounds healthy. It's deeply boring. I laughed. There you are. What? You've been looking like you're at a performance review for 20 minutes. I have not. You absolutely have. The table beside us got louder. Travis leaned closer to hear me. His knee touched mine beneath the table. Neither of us moved. My body registered the fact with humiliating efficiency. I noticed the small scar beside his chin. The way he listened without becoming solemn. His mouth when he smiled. I liked him. That realization arrived earlier than I had planned, which, admittedly, was not difficult. I planned everything. After dinner, we walked 2 blocks before stopping at a corner, with the mountains darkening beyond the buildings. Travis looked up. You ever get used to that? I live in Denver. That wasn't my question. I recognized the callback. No, I said. I don't think I do. A truck passed. Travis moved a little closer. Not enough to touch. Enough that I knew he was considering it. You're thinking again. I think regularly. Dangerous habit. What are you thinking? His eyes stayed on mine. That I want to do this again. Dinner? You. There were probably smarter responses. I said, Oh. He laughed softly. Still working on receiving compliments? Apparently. He lifted one hand. For half a second, I thought he might touch my face. Instead, as a group came around us on the sidewalk, his palm settled lightly at my back. 3 seconds, maybe 4. The contact followed me all the way to the car. The next morning I went back to the arena. Henry was working through a pattern when Murphy resisted a turn. My body tightened immediately. Henry corrected. Murphy resisted again. My Travis crossed the arena. He didn't take the reins. Didn't touch the horse. He said something I couldn't hear. Henry tried again. Wrong. Again. Better. On the 4th attempt, Murphy turned cleanly. Henry's whole face changed. Not relief. Pride. He looked toward me and saw that I had watched the entire thing. The pride dimmed slightly. Afterward, he walked over alone. You don't have to come to everyone. I know. No. You say that, then you come. I like watching. I don't. That hurt more than it should have. You don't want me here? Not every time. I looked toward the arena. What if something happens? Then something happens. That's not reassuring. I'm not trying to reassure you. There was no anger in his voice. That made it worse. I'm going to mess stuff up, Dad. I don't want to look over every time and see whether you saw. I swallowed. Okay. Okay? I can skip tomorrow. Henry blinked. Seriously? I am capable of personal growth. Let's not oversell it. He smiled and walked away. Travis approached a minute later. He asked you to stop coming? Were you listening? No. You know anyway. He rides differently when you're not at the rail. That hurt too. Travis seemed to realize it. For once, he didn't turn the moment into a joke. I'm not saying he doesn't need you. That sounded dangerously close. He's 17. I'm aware. Maybe he's supposed to need you differently now. I exhaled. You're much more attractive when you're not giving me parenting advice. His eyebrows lifted. You think I'm attractive? That is not the relevant part of that sentence. It's the part I'm keeping. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I laughed. The next afternoon, for the first time since we arrived in Wyoming, I did not go to the ranch. I worked from a cafe in town. At 2:15, I checked the program portal. At 2:27, I checked again. At 2:40, my phone buzzed. Travis, you busy tonight? Then, and before you ask, Henry is fine. I smiled despite myself. I wasn't going to ask. 3 dots appeared. Liar. Then, what are you doing? His reply came almost immediately. Asking you out again. That one felt different. No ranch update attached. No reason to see him except that he wanted to. I typed yes. Our second date began with Travis being 23 minutes late. I knew it was 23, because numbers remained numbers, whether or not a handsome man from Wyoming approved. At minute 11 he texted, running late, horse issue, nobody hurt. At minute 18, still nobody hurt. This is somehow taking longer. At minute 23, his truck pulled into the parking lot. He got out looking annoyed with himself. I'm sorry. You said nobody was hurt. They weren't. Then I survived. I double booked. With the horse? With a farrier appointment I apparently scheduled 3 weeks ago and then erased from my brain. You coordinate an entire youth program. Professionally, I'm excellent. And personally, developing. We ended up getting sandwiches and taking them to a park because the place we had planned to eat was crowded. It was less formal than our first date. I liked it more. Travis sat beside me on a bench, one boot stretched out, and stole one of my fries. I looked at him. What? You have your own. Yours looked better. They're identical. Then, you lost nothing. This is disturbing. You've lived a sheltered life. We ate in comfortable silence for a minute. Then he asked, how'd you do yesterday? With what? Not watching Henry. I worked. That wasn't my question. I pointed at him. You're overusing that. Still works. I sighed. It was awful. He laughed. I checked the portal 5 times. Only 5? One was accidental. How do you accidentally check a website? I already had the tab open. He was smiling, but not mockingly. More like he enjoyed the shape of my ridiculousness. I know it's excessive. I didn't say that. You were thinking it. I was thinking 5 isn't terrible. Really? No. I shoved his shoulder. He laughed hard enough that a woman walking a dog glanced over. The ease surprised me. I had expected dating after divorce to feel like re-entering a language I had forgotten. With Travis, it felt more like discovering I had been speaking too carefully for years. By the time the sun dropped lower, we had been sitting there almost 2 hours. Eventually, Travis asked, do you miss being married? Not Mark. Being married. I watched a kid chase a soccer ball across the grass. Sometimes. He waited. I miss not having to explain the shape of my life. That doesn't sound strange. It does to me. When I was married, people knew where I belonged. Work knew. Henry knew. My parents knew. Holidays existed 6 months ahead. And now, everything has a calendar invite. Travis smiled. Romantic. You asked. I did. I don't miss being unhappy. I don't miss pretending things were okay, because nothing was actively on fire. But I miss knowing what the structure was. Travis rubbed his palms against his jeans. I think I missed that more than I missed my ex. You were 28. Still liked structure. Were you this disorganized then? Much worse. That feels impossible. It was impressive. I turned toward him. He was already looking at me. Something shifted between us. Nothing around us changed. People kept talking. Cars moved beyond the park. Somebody's dog barked, but I became aware of how close his knee was, how long I had wanted to touch him without forming the thought clearly. Travis looked at my mouth, then my eyes. You're thinking again. Probably. Anything useful? I could have made a joke. Instead, I said, I want to kiss you. His expression warmed. Okay. I waited 1 second, maybe 2, then leaned in. The kiss was softer than I expected. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was Travis's hand settling carefully at my waist, not pulling me closer until I moved closer myself. His mouth was warm. I could smell soap and something faintly woody on his skin. When we separated, I was still close enough to feel his breath. Well, he said. I laughed quietly. That's your response? I had a better one. What happened? You kissed me. That tends to interfere with conversation. Do it again, so I did. The following week, the program shifted into its residential phase. Until then, parents were still loosely present around pickup times, optional meals, beginner sessions, and practical errands. The residential phase was different. Students moved fully into ranch housing. Parents were encouraged to go home, not subtly. There was an email, there was a schedule, there was a sentence in bold. Students benefit from completing this phase independently. Henry read it over breakfast and looked at me. You saw that, right? I saw it. The bold part? Yes. Just checking. You enjoy this too much. A little. My rental was paid through Sunday. The original plan had always been to return to Denver when Henry moved into residence. I could work from the office again, sleep in my own bed, stop spending money on temporary housing. Everything practical pointed south. Saturday morning, I started packing. At 11, I stopped. At 11:15, I opened my laptop and checked our remote work policy. At 11:30, I called my manager. She sounded confused. You want to stay in Wyoming? For 3 more weeks. Is Henry okay? Yes. Then why? A reasonable question. I looked at my half-packed suitcase, at my phone on the table. Travis had texted 20 minutes earlier. Free after 6 if you are, I said, because I want to. My manager paused. Your spreadsheets don't care what state you're in. Just be online for month end. That afternoon, I extended the rental. I told Henry first. He stared at me through our scheduled video call. You're staying? Yes. Why? For once, I didn't hide behind convenience. I'm seeing Travis. His eyebrows rose. Still? Thank you for your confidence. No, I just thought adults date 3 times and then start saying things like timing. That is an alarming amount of knowledge. I have internet access. Unfortunately, he smiled, then became more serious. You're not staying because of me, right? The question stung less than it would have a week earlier. No. Okay. That was all. No approval. No concern. Just information. That evening, Travis found me outside a small restaurant. You didn't leave. I noticed. He smiled, but there was caution in it. I thought your rental ended. It did. And I extended it. His gaze flicked toward the road leading back to the ranch. I recognized the assumption before he said anything. For Henry? No. Travis looked back at me. I stepped closer. I'm staying another 3 weeks. He waited. My heart beat harder than it should have for a sentence that simple. Not for Henry. For once, Travis had nothing clever to say. Then he smiled. Not the arena smile, not the teasing one. Something smaller that made me want to touch him. So I did. I put my hand against his chest and kissed him in the parking lot before either of us could turn the moment into a discussion. The next few weeks became suspiciously ordinary. That was what I liked most. I worked until 5. Travis usually finished around 6. Sometimes we ate together. Sometimes he came to the rental afterward. Once we spent 40 minutes arguing about whether a movie counted as a Western simply because someone wore boots. Nothing dramatic was happening. Nobody was confessing to a second life. I was simply beginning to expect him. At 6:15, I would hear a truck outside, and know which door would open before I looked. I learned. Travis showered immediately after long arena days, because otherwise, according to him, he could feel dust in places. Dust had no legal right to exist. He hated sparkling water, read menus from the bottom up, sang badly while cooking and knew he sang badly, which somehow made it worse. When he was tired, he stopped finishing sentences because he assumed everyone could follow the first half. I could not. You can't say, tomorrow after the farrier, unless Katie moves the thing, and expect me to understand. We were sitting on the floor of my rental because the couch had somehow become covered in clean laundry neither of us had folded. You know Katie. I met her once. She runs the afternoon group. She wore a red hat. That's her. What thing is she moving? The trail session. You did not mention a trail session. I thought I did. You absolutely did not. He reached for my ankle and squeezed lightly. You're very attractive when you're angry about scheduling. I'm not angry. Concerned? Appalled. Better. I pulled my foot away. He caught it again. This time I let him keep it. What happens tomorrow? Work. Travis. Fine. Morning lessons, farrier at noon. Katie might move the advanced group, because it's supposed to get hot. I'm done around 7. See? Complete sentences. I feel controlled. You feel informed. He leaned toward me. Same thing in accounting? Only when done correctly. He kissed me before I could continue. That had become another thing I knew. Travis had no respect for the natural conclusion of an argument if kissing was available. I was learning not to mind. Henry called the next evening. Not because he missed me. He needed the password to our streaming account. You have your own profile. It logged me out. That sounds personal, Dad. I gave him the password, then made myself wait before asking about the week. How's everything? Good. The silence stretched. 3 weeks earlier, I would have filled it. Did you ride today? Are you sleeping enough? How's Murphy? Do you like the group? Instead, I said, good. Henry seemed almost surprised. Then he started talking on his own. They had done a trail exercise that morning. He had worked with a younger horse. He'd been corrected for carrying tension through his shoulders. Apparently, horses notice tension before humans admitted to having it. I chose not to take that personally. Then Henry said, I asked Travis about something. What? Ranch jobs. I sat straighter. What kind of ranch jobs? Like after high school. I was on my feet before I knew why. Not quitting school, Henry said. Obviously. I wasn't going to say that. You were thinking it. I walked toward the kitchen. My laptop was open on the counter. Travis had left 20 minutes earlier because he was teaching early the next morning. What exactly did you ask? Whether there are programs where you work somewhere and learn instead of going directly to college. And he said there are. Which ones? Dad. What? This is why I didn't tell you during the first sentence. I stopped. I'm listening. You're interrogating. I'm asking questions. You're doing the spreadsheet voice. I closed my eyes. There were several responses available, most of them bad. Okay, I said. Start over. Henry did. He had asked whether people ever moved from youth programs into actual ranch work. Travis told him some did. There were apprenticeships, seasonal jobs, agricultural programs, equine programs, community college routes, and several versions Henry had never heard of. Nothing had been applied for. Nothing had been decided. Then Henry added, he said if I got serious about one later, he'd probably write me a recommendation. My hand tightened around the counter. Probably? If I earned it. I heard Travis's voice in that sentence. That made my reaction worse. When did you talk about this? Yesterday. And you're telling me now? Yeah. Why didn't Travis? Henry paused. Why would he? The question stopped me. Because Travis was dating me. Because Henry was my son. Because post-high school plans were not casual. Because an admired instructor's recommendation could feel like more than a recommendation. Because I had spent 6 months terrified that important parts of my family were happening in rooms I wasn't in. I said, because this is a significant conversation. To me. Yes, so I'm telling you. That's not what I mean. I know. His voice changed. Travis is my instructor, Dad. I'm aware. Are you? I walked toward the window. What's that supposed to mean? It means you keep talking about him like he's connected to me. Because you're dating him. He is connected to you. Before you. That landed. He was my instructor before he asked you out. I know that. He didn't tell me to do anything. I asked him because he actually knows this stuff. I also know people, not ranch people. That's not the point. It kind of is. I could feel myself getting angry, which irritated me, because nothing Henry had said was unreasonable. You are 17. I'm aware. Post-high school decisions involve money, housing, education. Your other dad, me. Yes. And Travis has influence here whether he means to or not. Henry went silent. For 1 second, I thought I had finally made the point. Then he said, "You're jealous. That's ridiculous." Okay, Henry, Dad, I like Travis. I know, but I don't want him to be my dad. The words came fast enough that I had no answer ready. He's my instructor, Henry continued. You're the one making those the same thing. My throat tightened. That's not what I'm doing. It feels like it. I wanted to tell him I was protecting him. I wanted to say 17 was too young to understand how one exciting summer could distort the future. I wanted to remind him that adults carried weight. Teenagers did not always notice until later. Some of that was true. Enough was true that I could have hidden behind it. Instead, I asked, "Are you planning to apply somewhere?" "No." "Are you planning to skip college?" "I don't even know if I want college yet." That hit a completely different nerve. We've talked about. I know what we've talked about. I stopped. There it was. Not ranching. Not Travis. A future I had believed was already outlined. Henry drew a breath. I just want to know what exists. I looked at my reflection in the window. 40 years old. Divorced. Standing alone in Wyoming because, for once, I had made a decision entirely because I wanted a man. And still shocked that my son might want a future I had not already pictured. Okay, I said. Henry was quiet. Okay, what? Find out what exists. You mean that? I'm trying to. That got a small laugh. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen for another minute, then picked up my keys. I did not text Travis. I did not want this conversation in fragments. 25 minutes later, I found him outside the equipment barn, finishing a conversation with another instructor. He saw me and smiled. The smile faded quickly. Everything okay? I talked to Henry. Travis went still. That was enough to tell me he knew exactly which conversation was coming. What did he tell you? That he asked about ranch programs. He did. And that you said you might recommend him. If he decides to apply somewhere later, and if he earns one. Yes. The answer was calm. Too calm for how angry I felt. You didn't think that was something I should know? His eyebrows drew together. Henry said he was going to talk to you. That's not what I asked. No. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't. Why? Because he wasn't asking me as your boyfriend. The word boyfriend hit strangely. We had not used it before. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed hearing it. Instead, I said, he's 17. I know how old he is. Then you know this isn't the same as telling him what kind of boots to buy. I didn't tell him what to do. You told him you'd recommend him. I said I might. That matters. I know. Do you? His face changed. Not anger yet. The step before it. Yes, Stephen. I do. Because right now it sounds like you think you handed him a brochure. He asked me a serious question. I answered seriously. You're 46. He admires you. Your answer weighs more than some website. Travis looked toward the arena. The last students were finishing for the evening. Somebody laughed inside the barn. He's good, Travis said. At riding? At learning. At taking correction. At paying attention without needing to be the best person in the group. I stared at him. You've thought about this. It's my job. And you didn't think dating his father complicated that job? That landed. Travis looked back at me. I thought I could keep them separate. Can you? Yes. The speed of the answer irritated me. You're doing that right now? His jaw tightened. What exactly do you want me to say? I want you to acknowledge you have influence. I do. Then why are we arguing? Because you're acting like influence is the same thing as control. I didn't say control. You didn't have to. I laughed once without humor. Right. You know what I mean better than I do. That isn't fair. No. What isn't fair is pretending you're some neutral source of information when my son thinks you're the best thing that happened to his summer. Travis went still. I heard the sentence after it left my mouth. He did too. Something uncomfortable moved through his expression. Not guilt exactly. Pride, then guilt about the pride. You like that, I said. His eyes narrowed. Careful. You like that he listens to you. Of course I like it. At least you admit it. What is that supposed to mean? It means maybe you weren't completely objective. I never said I was objective. He's my son. I know. You keep saying that. Because you keep talking like I forgot. Then act like you remember. His face hardened. I'm not his father. Exactly. The word came out louder than I intended. We both stopped. I was breathing too fast. Travis looked at me for several seconds. Then picked up the halter from the fence. I have to finish here. That's it? What do you want, Stephen? A different answer because you drove out here angry. I want you to understand why I am. I understand some of it. Some? Yes. He met my eyes. And I think some of it has nothing to do with me. That was the sentence that sent me home. I did not slam a door. I did not announce we were finished. I got in the car and drove back to the rental with both hands locked around the steering wheel. 3 hours later, I still hated that I could not prove him wrong. The next morning, I called Mark. He answered on the 4th ring. If this is about the tuition spreadsheet, I already opened it. It isn't. Then something's wrong. Why does everyone assume that? Experience. I sat at the small kitchen table. Henry is thinking about ranch work after graduation. Silence. Then, okay. That's your response? What level of ranch work? I don't know. Apprenticeships. Training programs. Maybe equine programs. Is he quitting school? No. Has he applied somewhere? No. Did he join a cult? Mark. I'm establishing scale. Despite myself, I laughed. He asked Travis about it. The instructor you're dating? Yes. And? Travis said he might recommend him eventually. Mark was quiet. I waited for outrage. It did not arrive. So Henry asked someone in the field what jobs exist. That is a very generous summary. It's the summary you gave me. He's 17. Yes. This affects college. Potentially. Money. Potentially. Where he lives. Potentially. Mark sighed. Stephen. What? You are 3 decisions ahead. I am being realistic. You're calculating rent in a state he hasn't applied to live in. I stared at the wall. That was uncomfortably close. Does Henry sound excited? Mark asked. Yes. That's useful. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. No, it means we listen. I hated how reasonable he sounded. Since when are you the relaxed parent? Since you called me sounding like a committee meeting. I laughed again. Mark's voice softened. He doesn't have to know what he's doing at 17. I know. Do you? I rubbed my forehead. I'm trying. That's probably enough for today. After we hung up, I did not feel better. But the problem had become smaller. Not unimportant. Smaller. Henry had asked a question. Travis had answered it. Nobody had submitted an application, purchased a horse, or abandoned higher education under cover of darkness. That afternoon, Henry texted me. Travis said if I ever actually want a recommendation, we should talk after the program. I stared at the message. Why? He replied quickly. He said instructor status is cleaner once summer is over. Then, he was very boring about it. You'd approve. I smiled before I wanted to. Travis had changed something. Not because I had won the argument, because some part of what I said had reached him. I waited 2 days before seeing him again. That was not a strategy. The first day he worked late. The second day I had month end. By the third, we had both become ridiculous. At 6:30, he texted, "Can I see you tonight?" I typed 3 different answers before settling on yes. He came to the rental without flowers, food, or an apology prepared for delivery. I was grateful for all 3. We sat outside because the evening was cooler. For a while, we talked about everything except Henry. A younger student had dropped a glove into a water trough. My boss had used the phrase, expense synergy, and I had briefly considered resigning. Eventually, Travis rubbed his palms over his jeans. I was defensive. I looked at him. Me too. That's inconvenient. Very. He stared out at the road. I liked that Henry asked me. There it was. Not polished, not excused, just true. I know. I felt good that he trusted me. Probably too good. I looked down at my hands. I was angry that he listened to you. Travis glanced over. That's also inconvenient. Yes. I don't think he listens to me instead of you. It felt like it. He nodded. That was better than reassurance. After a moment I said, "You were right about one thing." "Only one? Don't ruin this." He smiled faintly. Some of why I got angry had nothing to do with you. He did not ask me to explain. That helped. I still think Henry deserves serious answers, Travis said. So do I. And I should probably remember that my opinion doesn't sound neutral to him. That would help. He looked at me. We okay? I almost said yes automatically. Instead, I considered it. Not completely. Fair. But I don't want to stop seeing you. The relief on his face was immediate enough to embarrass both of us. Good. You? He leaned closer. Stephen. What? I've spent 3 days being irritated that I couldn't kiss you. That was a much better answer. Our kiss was different from the others. Less effortless. There was still frustration between us. Things neither of us had solved. But when his hand settled against the side of my neck, and I moved closer, none of that disappeared. It simply existed beside wanting him. Maybe that was one of the things I had forgotten about relationships. Problems did not become proof that everything was ending just because they existed. By the final week, Travis and I had settled into something less fragile. Not effortless. Better than effortless. We disagreed once more about Henry, although that argument lasted 7 minutes and ended with Travis admitting he had forgotten to mention something because he genuinely forgot, not because it contained hidden emotional significance. I disliked how plausible that was. He also started asking questions that had nothing to do with parenting, divorce, or future logistics. What music did I actually like? Why did I own 3 identical blue shirts? Had I always folded receipts before putting them in my wallet? The answer to the last one was yes. He looked genuinely disturbed. I learned more of him too. He hated voicemail. His older sister in Cheyenne called every Sunday and usually ended the conversation by reminding him of something he had forgotten. He owned exactly 1 suit. He had no idea where the jacket was, and he left kitchen cabinet doors open. That nearly ended us. Why? We were standing in my rental kitchen 2 nights before the final ride. Travis looked toward the cabinet above the sink. What? That. What about it? You opened it. Yes. And then walked away. I needed a glass. You got the glass. Correct. So the cabinet's work is complete. He stared at me. You think furniture has tasks. I think doors should be closed. He leaned against the counter. Are you going to survive long-distance dating if you can't monitor my cabinets? The sentence was playful. The subject was not. We had discussed Denver, Wyoming, weekends, driving. His regional clinic in Denver, 3 weeks later. My month-end schedule. We had discussed these things the way adults discuss things when neither wanted to convert a new relationship into a 5-year plan just to prove it mattered. Still, hearing him say long distance made my stomach tighten. You said dating. I did. Interesting. Stephen, I'm observing terminology. You're impossible. You like me. I do. The ease of the answer still had power over me. He pushed away from the counter and closed the cabinet. For you. That may be the most romantic thing you've done. I regret it already. The final ride was Saturday morning. By 9, the ranch was crowded with parents, grandparents, siblings, phones, folding chairs, and enough nervous energy to disturb every horse in Wyoming if the instructors had not been good at their jobs. I arrived early. Of course I did. My body took me automatically to the arena rail. Same stretch of fence, same dirt. 6 weeks earlier, I had stood there trying to calculate whether Henry was safe, happy, angry, traumatized, excited, or pretending to be some combination of all 5. Now he was across the arena, tightening Murphy's girth himself. He looked older. That was ridiculous. 6 weeks could not change a person that much. Maybe what had changed was my distance from him. I could see more now that I was not trying to stand inside every experience. Travis crossed the arena carrying a clipboard. He was working. He did not come over, did not give me a private smile, did not make our relationship part of Henry's event. I liked him for that. Henry looked toward the rail, saw me. His gaze dropped briefly to my hands. I realized I was gripping the top board. I let go, then noticed several empty folding chairs farther back. I went and sat down. No symbolic music played. Nobody applauded my emotional growth. A woman beside me asked if she was blocking my view. No, I said. For the first time, I meant it. The students rode individually and in small groups. Henry was not perfect. That helped. Halfway through a pattern, Murphy resisted a transition, and Henry lost the rhythm. My body leaned forward. Then Henry corrected. Not immediately, not elegantly, but he corrected. Travis stood near the center and said something I couldn't hear. Henry nodded. Tried again. Better. When he finished, I clapped with everyone else. He did not look for my face until he was already smiling. That felt different. Afterward, I found him beside the barn. He was sweaty, dusty, and carrying himself with the exhausting confidence of someone who had recently succeeded at something difficult. You breathed normally, he said. I worked very hard. I noticed you weren't at the rail. I was there initially. Baby steps. I wanted to hug him. I waited. Henry moved first. One arm. Barely a second. Enough. Then he stepped back. I've been thinking about next year. There it was. Every old instinct arrived at once. Questions. Schedules. Costs. Deadlines. I kept my mouth shut. Henry narrowed his eyes. You okay? Yes. You're doing something with your face. I'm listening. That's new. Henry. He smiled, then turned serious. I'm coming home. That was always the plan. No. I mean after graduation too. Probably. The word probably mattered. I let it remain. I don't want to decide everything because of 6 weeks. That sounds reasonable. I want to keep writing. Find somewhere near Denver. We can look. And I want to research the apprenticeship stuff. Okay. And colleges. Okay. Maybe community college. Okay. He stared at me. You're being weirdly normal. I contain multitudes. That is not what that means. I'm aware. He looked down at his boots. I wasn't miserable the whole time. I went still. After the divorce, he added. I waited. I know you thought I was. I didn't think. He looked at me. I stopped. Sometimes I was upset, he said. Obviously. Obviously. And sometimes I just didn't want to talk. I nodded. You kept asking if I was okay. I remember. And then asking in different ways when I said yes. That sounded familiar enough to hurt. It was annoying, he said. I'm sorry. He shrugged. Sometimes I was just quiet, Dad. Nothing about the sentence was dramatic. That was why it reached me. I had treated silence like evidence. Because once, in my marriage, it had been. Henry had never agreed to carry that meaning. I'll try to believe you next time. He considered that. Not every time. No. But more often? More often. That seems fair. Later, during the closing dinner, I watched Travis move between students and families, with the same easy competence that had first irritated me. Henry spoke to him near the barn for a few minutes. I could not hear them. I did not walk closer. That was new too. Henry returned carrying his certificate. What did he say? He gave me a look. I laughed. Sorry. Reflex. He said to email him in a couple months if I'm still interested. Good. And he said I should ride somewhere local first so I know whether I actually like this when it's not summer in Wyoming. That also sounds good. Henry tucked the certificate under his arm. You two are still weird, by the way. What does that mean? I don't know. You look at him differently. I glanced across the yard. Travis was laughing at something one of the instructors had said. My body responded before my thoughts did. Henry made a noise. See? I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened. Please do. That evening, after the students disappeared for one last night together, I found Travis near the empty arena. The rail cast a long shadow over the dirt. You're leaving tomorrow, he said. Yes, he nodded. I waited for the ache in my chest to become a reason to change something. It didn't. That surprised me. I don't like it, I said. Good. Good? If you were thrilled, I'd take it personally. I smiled. He stepped closer. I have the Denver clinic in 3 weeks. I know. Friday through Sunday. I know. You have calendars. Several. He laughed. Then his expression softened. I'm not going to ask you to stay. I don't want you to. That mattered. I looked toward the ranch buildings. I came here because Henry wanted one summer. And? I think I spent the first half trying to make sure I understood what it was doing to him. Travis waited. The second half was better. Because of me? Partly. Only partly? I'm maintaining your humility. Cruel. I touched the front of his shirt. I stayed because of you. His hand covered mine. And I'm leaving because I live in Denver. I know. I want both of those things to be allowed. They are. His answer came without ceremony. That was one of the things I had learned to trust about him. Sometimes a simple answer was simply an answer. He kissed me slowly. I let myself feel sad. Not frightened. Sad. There was a difference. The next morning, Henry and I drove south. He slept for the first hour. I did not check whether he was emotionally processing anything. I turned on the radio. He woke near the state line. Are you and Travis still dating? Yes. Long distance? That appears to be the current classification. He looked out the window. Cool. That's all? What else do you want? Nothing. Good. Denver felt strangely loud after Wyoming. Work reclaimed me quickly. Month end arrived. Henry went back to his summer job for the few weeks before school. Mark and I had dinner with him once to talk about senior year costs, and discovered that Henry had already made a list of local riding places before either of us suggested it. I asked 3 questions. Mark kicked me under the table after the 5th. I improved. Travis and I texted. Called. Failed once at scheduling a video chat because he forgot he had agreed to help his sister move a piece of furniture. I was annoyed. He apologized. Neither of us interpreted the incident as a statement about our future. That felt more significant than it should have. 3 weeks after I left Wyoming, Travis arrived in Denver on a Friday afternoon. No horse trailer, no students, no ranch dust. Just Travis, in a dark shirt, standing outside my building, with an overnight bag and a badly folded clinic schedule sticking out of one pocket. I opened the door. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he smiled. There you are. It hit me harder than any grand declaration could have. I stepped forward and kissed him before he got completely inside. His overnight bag bumped the doorframe. He laughed against my mouth. I missed you too. You're blocking the hallway. Romantic. I have neighbors. Even more romantic. Henry came down the stairs behind me, carrying his backpack. He stopped. Hey. Travis stepped back. Hey. How was the clinic? Good. Cool. Henry looked at me. I'm going to Mateo's. Don't wait up. I wasn't going to. Yes, you were. Then he left. No matchmaking. No meaningful glance. No family tableau. A 17-year-old with somewhere else to be. Travis watched the door close. He seems good. He is. Not perfect. Not permanently solved. Good. I could let that be enough. Travis turned toward me. Dinner? Depends. On. I smiled. Are you asking about my schedule? He stared at me for 1 second, then laughed. No. There was no arena. No lesson. No student. No reason for Travis to be in Denver, except that we had decided to keep showing up in each other's lives. I picked up my jacket. Yes, I said, before he finished asking.